Look at the time, there hasn't been a video bemoaning the state of Final Fantasy XIV made in the last 15 minutes. Someone should fix that. Someone with an uncanny talent to produce streams of words to expose the game for all its weaknesses. Streams of words that are woefully underappreciated. Words of such poetic power deserve a viewership of at least several million a day. Someone should fix that lack of appreciation. Someone with the unrivaled ability to click on like and subscribe buttons and compose vile comments chastising me for dropping the shameless engagement begging within the first few seconds of the video. Drop as in drop a big dump all over Final Fantasy XIV, or maybe not. Maybe things feel bad, but there's actually factually nothing wrong with the game at all, and we as the players are the actual problem. Having read the title of this video, you may now say, honey, how can you say that? The game has Dark Knights in it, they have edges, at least 1,000 on every square inch of their body. In fact, it's so many edges, they're turning angular, they're polygonal now, they're putting 1997 Final Fantasy VII Cloud to shame. And that's where you didn't pay attention. We're talking about game, not character, and no edge on game. Yes, look, it's all smooth and shiny just like your butt. I'm sorry, I can't just come in swinging with a statement that is a lethal dose of truth. I'm knocking people unconscious, they're on the floor, what have I done? It's a scandal now. Headlines read, YouTuber metaphorically attacks viewers. People are bleeding, they're on the ground shouting for benediction. It's absolute bedlam out here. The Japanese police is after me. Yoshi P is breathing down my neck. I'm going to prison, there's no two ways about it. 99.9% conviction rate. There's no escape. Please, Segurama, save me from this injustice. What is wrong with you, Japan? Obsidian tells me I just wrote roughly 300 words with nothing said, and that's just how I like it. That's how I want my videos to be. Absolute filler content. Nothing important to add to the conversation. Padding the runtime of the video to unreasonable lengths without saying fuck a single time so daddy YouTube isn't upset with me. Well, fuck, I just said fuck and I said it again. I'm caught in a loop. There's no escaping now. We're getting put on a list. Fuck. I wrote ad infinitum in the script, but I don't think I can keep this skullduggery up any longer as I just used up my entire arsenal of F-bombs for the next 5 videos, just like Square Enix used up all of its creative capital. Ooh! I'm sorry, I got excited by that sick burn, but I didn't actually mean to slander Square Enix at all. I just need a seg to the next section, please, Square. I love you, I swear. Please don't cancel your super secret near reincarnation remake project that you're totally making. I'm not just on massive giant copium about. I implore thee, I need it injected in my brain folds. Well, getting back on topic, Final Fantasy XIV is a game that's been around for close to 13 years now. How is it that every time I talk about the release of something, it's always more than 10 years ago? Have there been good games since then at all? As Square's second foray into the world of MMORPGs, they weren't quite sure what they were doing at the time, so much so that the game was dead on arrival. No reason to play that over World of Warcraft that had vastly better gameplay design overall at the time, or Final Fantasy XI even, that never ceased to be a pile of unadulterated jank. It is thanks to the later installed game director Naoki Yoshida that the game is still alive and thriving today, and keeps consistently gaining new players ever since. In the wake of this, Yoshida has gained a borderline cultish following, and any critique on his person will be met with witch hunts of such severity, the likes of which put the trials of Salem to shame. But I know it just shows how much people have fallen madly in love with this new incarnation of a game that was all but destined to fail. They now spend their days locked in dances on the Etherite Plaza of Limsa Lominsa. It's a real problem. Please, someone send help. Square Enix has chained their souls to this place. The curse must be broken. People are wasting their entire lives. I love Final Fantasy XIV. I loved it when I started playing. I loved it for years. I still love it on occasion when I'm playing video games and I'm not living my life going out experiencing things in the real world. Good God, am I the normie now? I'm going to FanFest this year. Everything is already booked. You can meet me there. I'm wearing the Momoa t-shirt. I'm putting on the Fisher hat. I got my toy fishing rod. I'm using cans of white monster for bait. You better watch out. I'm coming for you. What is my problem then? What am I so deliciously salty about? Why am I bad-mouthing this game that I have amassed an ungodly amount of midlife crisis-inducing playtime in? Why are you glancing over at your playtime? Are you telling me it's worse? Do we need to talk about your digital media consumption? Is it time for an intervention? I'm bringing my psychiatrist sofa to FanFest. We're diving into your childhood trauma together. This is a sofa for psychiatry. Nothing else happens on it, and whatever you're thinking is probably not appropriate for doing in a public space. Much like psychiatry, so guess I'm the asshole here. I'm not the only one who has had an issue with the game for a while. There's been waves of videos titled The Problem with Final Fantasy XIV, but that's a boring title. Boring premise, boring script writing. They don't have my ability to generate torrential waves of incomprehensible drivel. But see, it hurts because all of those people, everyone complaining about the game is someone who dearly loves Final Fantasy XIV too. People who want to keep loving it, but they can't bring themselves to for one reason or another. So too did I until I got over it, and now I'm spending my days playing single-player games, reading books, writing scripts, watching you sleep, and so on. There are so many half-finished scripts at this point you have no idea. Obviously though, there wouldn't be any reason to get over it if there wasn't anything to get over. I'm just not that interested anymore when I'm playing myself. I love joining friends and FC mates for content and events, but you'd never catch me gearing up for the newest Savage raid anymore. Maybe that's just what playing one game for 10 years does to you. Maybe there's only so much you can get out of it. Maybe you shouldn't be expecting you can recreate the experience of discovering a game for the first time. But then why didn't that happen sooner? Why is it not just me, but so many other various players and content creators who slowly started falling out of favor with the game around the time Shadowbringers dropped? Final Fantasy is a series with many jobs, such as Paladin, Dragoon, Ninja, Plumber, and Lawyer. Those aren't in the game yet. Look forward to the new Road Dwellers expansion, where Titanic terrorists have made any gear unaffordable, and the Warrior of Light is working 4 simultaneous office jobs to make ends meet. Jobs over time have been quite significantly simplified, with old skills shaved off, as the jump in level cap would have otherwise led to an explosion of skill icons, of which are already spread over 3 individual hotbars for most classes. In the process, we have lost such iconic abilities as Protect, Stone Skin, Flash, or that pole dance thing Dragoons used to perform as some sort of sick mating ritual in the middle of Limsa Lominsa, where every interaction leads to mating anyway, so really did they even need it to begin with? And yes, I agree, Flash was a heinously bad ability conceived of by the devil himself, and we're better off without it. I would accept any change if it makes Paladin better, but a lot of the jank has been taken from us to the point where no jank is to be had. I miss some of the janky spells and abilities. I know Protect fundamentally didn't serve a purpose whatsoever, but it was fun to feel like you're providing something very fundamentally important to the party as the healer, with which certainly the party would be reduced to a fine powder within the first 10 seconds of the Pepsi Man fight. That's why Ragnarok Online used to be fun way back. Holy shit, that's so many years ago. That game is older than most of you are. Being a priest in that game was nothing short of being a rock star. Everybody loved you, everyone wanted you and needed you around. There was not a single thing you could feasibly do without the array of buffs you provided. A lot of people will bitch and moan about the fact that you have to reapply Protect after reviving someone in a fight, but honestly, is that really that bad? Is it really too much to ask of you to stop tugging your trumpet to your FF locks for a second and just cast a dumbass wall? There was a world where jobs were unique and fun, albeit sometimes underpowered and clunky, but you didn't mind because you like playing them, and the Paladin is absolute dog water, but he's your boy and you play him anyway, and you would never abandon him, even when a glance from Alexander Prime would incinerate him in the spot. So skills have been removed, big deal, that happens all the time. It's not like we can keep 200 skills around just because some stupid fish head man on the old YouTubes feels an inexplicable emotional connection to the crossed out symbols on his hotbar. And yes, when you bother looking at things objectively, which I never do out of principle, you'll see that removing most of the things that got removed was the right decision. But it's still one part of the great de-edgification campaign of the game of Final Fantasy XIV, of which has been implemented over many years. Seasoned veterans will know that there has been a great samification of jobs that's been washing over them since about the release of Shadowbringers. That is a word I just made up, and yet you understand what it means. That is the power of language and big fish brains working together in tandem. Go humanity! Honest to God though, most of these changes are reasonable, except Gunbreaker. It's not like they roll the dice to decide what to delete and what to add to the game, except Gunbreaker, though that would be very funny and would be a reasonable explanation for what happened to some jobs in recent patches, like Gunbreaker. But for real, I hear you, it makes sense to have everyone have their government-mandated gap closer ability or other various movement options, because it makes it easier to design rates that can be tackled by any party composition with an ever-growing roster of jobs. Balancing is difficult, it takes a lot of time and effort to design fights for which any conceivable combination of jobs can be viable, and also make it such none of them is vastly underpowered and we're not hurting little Timmy's feelings. Why is little Timmy making an appearance twice within one video anyway? When has he obtained such power? Do we have to worry? Do we have to run a campaign against him? Will Timmy be the final boss of the next expansion, having acquired powers to destroy all of reality and plunge the world into a new age of horrible calamity? But you know, just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's fun. Now all your DPS are on the same burst window timer, and you don't have to muck around in the middle of a raid because everyone's got to think about all the ways in which their debuffs are going to be misaligned. Now you might say that is annoying and you would never want to return to such heinous skill rotations, to which I have nothing to add. You do you, it's your life. I can't tell you not to be a little baby and can't deal with some adversity. No, really, it makes sense. When you're a seasoned raid party, the alignment of cooldowns creates a smoother gameplay experience for everyone, but maybe we've become too smooth and there's no hardship to grapple with anymore. We've taken a course of inclusivity and radical non-resistance, the insistence on which is slowly sucking the fun out of the choices you can make. Like, wouldn't it be fun to use a severely underpowered class because you either really love it or you're unreasonably good at it and you manage to overcome the seemingly insurmountable challenge of the newest ultimate raid anyway? That's what Black Mage used to be. It was a job that required incredible skill, positioning, and intimate knowledge of every fight in the game just so you could hope to do a fraction of the damage of a White Mage who had to do little more than violate the glare button over and over. When you insist on balance and equality, you severely limit the risks you can take in terms of the design of classes, abilities, raids, and even gear. And we all know that the gear in Final Fantasy XIV hasn't exactly ever been pants-soilingly exciting. Can I have a piece of gear that's not just a stat stick and maybe change some of my abilities in a meaningful way or provide some sort of advantage in combat? Come on, I'm not asking for much. Increase arm's length duration by a second for all I care. Just give me anything interesting, I'm begging you. Now, to your ears whom are naturally dedicated to my words only right in this moment and not at all torn between 3 different types of media which you must keep running at all times to keep the suffering rampaging within you at bay, it would sound like the state of the game has only worsened over time, but that is not so. Raid fights are the best they've ever been. The Arcadian is the best raid of all time in Final Fantasy XIV. I will not fight you on this, I am right. If you have a different opinion, feel free to travel back in time and test your mettle against Pepsi Man again, whom on release was mathematically impossible to clear. Nobody in the world ever asked for cast bars on Bard and Machinist either. If you're one of the people who ever asked for that, I would kindly ask you to park your posterior elsewhere, because your kind is evil and disgusting and the rest of us don't want to suffer your existence on this earth any longer. Many quality of life changes, glamour plates to band-aid a fundamentally broken system because they couldn't figure out how transmogrify should work. Freely customizable UI elements, and yes, I'm not gonna lie, this may be the greatest UI ever conceived. You can change anything you want, the sky is the limit, and the sky you can change too. Look, it's red now. PvP, which had been a laughable waste of an activity for many years, and though it is still a game mode only frequented by the weirdest and oddest folk among the Eorzean populace, and the handful of people in it for the nice clothes, has come into its own as a legitimate way to enjoy the game. Gathering and crafting, while already being the most engaging of their kind in any MMO ever, have been greatly overhauled and made accessible to everyone without hundreds of hours of heinous grinding that were used to be required to access all the cross-class abilities that were absolutely mandatory if you didn't want to be the laughing stock of the entire community. There are so many things to do in this game. You don't even have to bother with any of the raids or high-level content at all. You can craft items, feed your gambling addiction, become a fashion expert, play the terrible choker race minigame that nobody likes, or spend your days on the high seas catching fish. The world is your oyster. There's a ton of things I just can't take issue with, and that's all thanks to the team working on Final Fantasy XIV that's done an amazing job to save a game from the brink of certain death. But see, here's the catch, that's the rub, here's the crux of the whole entire issue. They've done their job too well, and as someone with more than half a brain cell, that statement may not make sense to you, but allow me to explain. Given the framework, the engine, the functionality of the game, and the underlying code, they've made all the reasonable changes they could, in most cases, but making changes that are reasonable doesn't always mean making changes that are fun and exciting. There's been a lot of experimentation with new types of content, ways to engage in exploration and combat, attempts at difficult, large-scale raids, but all of it has been tucked away safely into the overall category of relic grinding to never conceivably interfere with the main gameplay loop. I'm okay with that. I think that's the reasonable thing to do as well, but still, none of these things have ever borne fruit in such a way that they would be considered inclusions in what is effectively the main game of Final Fantasy XIV. There's been a persistent unwillingness to make any changes to the formula or take any risks since the game has been consistently making crap loads of money for Square, even in times of significant player decline, so there's no incentive to change anything. The equation that is Final Fantasy XIV is now thoroughly solved and optimized, so you know what you're going to get, and that's nice. It beats sitting with growing uncertainty for several months and you don't know what, when, where, and how new content is added to the trove. There's never any real variety or choice in games. They're all limited by their engine, control scheme, platform, or even just the fact that there's only so much that can be done in a digital space anyway. Some games are really good at maintaining that illusion, give you the feeling that the content you're engaging in is new and refreshing, when in reality it's the same shit you've run 5,000 times over the last few years, but with a fresh coat of paint. Final Fantasy XIV is not great at that. It doesn't dare to make small changes that may be suboptimal in terms of gameplay, but beneficial in terms terms of player psychology. Make them think they're engaging with a new system, even if it's still the same thing at its core. The areas, dungeons, raid mechanics, and gear names change, but you're still operating in the same exact framework, and the framework is starting to suffocate you. It feels stale and you wish you had some fresh nonsense to chew on, even if it means sacrificing ease and convenience. You feel like you're being fed the same thing over and over, and it's starting to get bland. You can only eat a 5-star luxury meal so many times before you start craving some 20-piece chicken McNuggets from McDonald's. Here's an important question. Put yourself in the shoes of Square Enix management. Imagine you're a Japanese businessman. All the joy and whimsy in your life have been snuffed out 30 years ago. The life of the company is now your life. God, I'm making myself miserable just thinking about it. You see that game, you see those numbers, and you see consistent growth for years. Maybe you know players crave an exciting change, but you can't fathom who in their right mind would change a formula that's already optimal and proven to work. You can't do that because what the players want isn't a good change, it's any change. It's anything that makes them feel like the gears are turning, things are moving, maybe just the illusion that something big is about to happen. It's only in Dawntrail numbers have presumably started to drop significantly since Heavensward, and that may be a catalyst for a bigger change, of which may still need 2 or more expansions to implement, because all the plans for the next one have already been finalized and gone through the lengthy approval process. The overall problem with Final Fantasy XIV is something that's a natural consequence of the fact that the team did their job too well, so well that there's nothing more to do. If you change anything about how the gameplay or reward system works, it's a downgrade unless you change those things significantly. But we've been over that, why would you ever do that? This is now a game new players will have a 2,000-hour honeymoon phase with. Actually, that's way past honeymoon, we're in committed relationship territory. But you know, it's a stale one. You have too many things in common with your partner, there's no friction, no sparks of excitement, and the whole thing peters out when you start thinking there's gotta be more out there in life than this passionless existence. There's nothing wrong with that, and it works as a business model when you can get a wave of new players on board with every expansion, replacing the wave of old players that finally got tired of eating lobster every day. But then you're also expecting those new players to slog their way through more than a decade of compounding content, or alternatively buy additional items to skip the story experience entirely, which dilutes the potency of the whole experience, and you're sacrificing attachment to the world and characters, so maybe it doesn't work. I don't know, we'll see when the new players start leaving. After an elongated period of much bitching and moaning from my person, I have to conclude that Final Fantasy XIV isn't doing anything fundamentally wrong, being an overall enjoyable, if initially tedious experience for new players, while accepting the loss of some old ones. So really, maybe it is us, maybe we're just not ready to let go and move on. Maybe the memories we've made and the emotions we've felt over years of playtime have shackled us to the image of a past that can never be reproduced. We're so intimately familiar with what Final Fantasy XIV is at its core that there's nothing that can move or shock us anymore. So maybe it is just time to move on and hang up that job crystal and start a new life playing Warframe. This will not be the last mention of Warframe in one of these videos, there will be a Warframe video. So what was the point of all of this then? Nothing, frankly. It's not like I can personally trot on over to Yoshi P's office and order him to redesign the entire game from scratch. Mostly because, being a literal fish, I don't have the authority to do that, but also because that would turn it into an entirely new game. Final Fantasy XX maybe? Essentially what it means is you should enjoy your honeymoon phase as long as it lasts, and it may yet last thousands of more hours. Every game has this ambition these days, the wish to be the one to supply players with an infinite amount of entertainment that never grows stale. But frankly, that's impossible. It's not how human brains or human desire work. You're chasing a dragon you will never catch. Go back out there, play some single-player RPGs. There's amazing ones out there. I heard there was this incredibly new game from the land of baguettes, wine, and cheese. You should try it. Won't traumatize you entirely forever, I swear. Anyway, that's all from me. See you later.